Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. So on today's video, we're going to be talking about what not to say to witches. So this video was directly inspired by Toxic Tears. Now she has a channel on YouTube and she mainly creates lifestyle and fashion, and a few years ago she did a video called What Not to Say to Goth Girls. So I have linked her video down in the description box because she is the inspiration for this video. Now I haven't actually checked yet whether anyone else in the community has done a similar video to this, but if they have, I will link some of those videos down in the description box as well so that you guys can check out the kind of things that are on other people's lists of what not to say to witches. So today I really just wanted to sit down and chat with you guys about some of the things that witches hear regularly when people find out that they are a practicing witch, whether they be random strangers, people on the internet, friends or family. A lot of us will have experienced at least some of these things within our magical journey. So I wanted to sit down and talk about them with you guys. And if you're watching this as someone that is new to the magical community or is an outsider to the magical community, maybe take it on board and not ask a witch or tell a witch these things. Maybe change the way you word them and do a little bit of research before you start asking a whole bunch of questions or telling them a whole bunch of things that aren't actually real or accurate. So the first thing that you shouldn't say to a witch is, "Are you a devil worshipper? Wait, are you a Satanist?" Now, many thanks to the person who sent me this in an Instagram DM today. You reminded me to put it in this video. This is actually something that we get told a lot, and it's a question that's really, really common, whether that be in person or online. And there are a lot of misconceptions in this one statement. The first is the idea that witchcraft, devil worship, and Satanism are all the same thing, and they definitely aren't. So what is witchcraft? Witchcraft is a magical system, it's a magical practice, it's a craft, it's something you learn. Now, witchcraft in itself has no attached religion and it doesn't have any attached deities, so you can be non-religious and practice witchcraft. You can follow a religion like Wicca, some people also follow Christianity and practice witchcraft, or you can follow specific deities. So I, for instance, follow Bridget and Ceridwen. Now, different practitioners will have different religious beliefs, so you'll often meet multiple practitioners that follow completely different deities and have completely different religious stances. Because witchcraft is a magical practice, it's a craft, it isn't a religion in its own right, and the practitioners of witchcraft often follow multiple different religions and have multiple different beliefs. Now, devil worship isn't witchcraft, mainly because a lot of witches don't even believe that the devil exists. He doesn't exist within their perspective on religion. Now, the Christian devil does appear in some people's magical practice, but a lot of magical practitioners don't follow one of the Christianized faiths, and they don't actually believe in the Christian devil. So they're not going to worship something if they don't actually believe in it. Now, a lot of this idea largely comes from some of the Celtic gods, one of the main ones being Cernunnos. Now, Cernunnos is a horned god. He's a horned deity, and he's also often seen with cloven hooves. Now, he is not the Christian devil, but a lot of people do believe that he is, and so you'll often find people being classified as devil worshippers when in reality they probably just follow one of the many nature deities that has similar characteristics to the Christian devil. So it's really important to draw the line there that a lot of witches don't even follow deities. They don't have deities, they don't have religion. If they do have religion, it really could be any of them. Not all witches follow the same religion, follow the same deities, follow the same tradition. We're all different, we're all unique, and that's where the saying came from that if you ask 12 witches the same question, you'll get 13 answers, because a lot of witches follow completely different traditions. Now, Satanism is a completely different thing. It isn't what a lot of people assume it is based on its name. If you want to research more about Satanism, I would suggest doing so through the texts of the people that are actually part of it. Please don't read texts written by opposing religions because you aren't going to get the full story. If you want to learn about what Satanism really is, read some information from actual Satanists, not from people outside or opposing the tradition, because you're going to get a lot of stuff that's not accurate in those forms of the text. So to break it down, witchcraft is a magical practice. A lot of people don't believe in the Christian God or the Christian devil or Satan, therefore they're not going to worship them. But of course, every witch is going to be different. So you might find some witches that do worship the Christian devil, but that doesn't apply to all of us. And then Satanism is its own thing in its own different sector that is definitely well worth researching, and they aren't the same thing. So the second thing that you shouldn't say to witches is, "But you don't look like a witch." Now, often this is done innocently, but a lot of people will also do this maliciously, and it's usually attacking several different groups of people, usually those that look differently from the societal norm of a witch. I mean, what does a witch look like? It's a bit like asking, what does a plumber look like? I don't know. Gary could be a plumber. Janet could be a plumber. You're never going to know unless they tell you they're a plumber. The same applies to witchcraft. You can't look at someone and go, you're a witch, you just look like it. It doesn't work like that. Witches look like so many different things. And by saying to someone that you can't be a witch because you don't look like one, it really does damage some people's self-esteem, especially if they are part of a group in society that is already facing a lot of negativity. Often this is aimed at people that don't look like the social norm, whether they be male, whether they be non-binary, whether they simply look different. Unfortunately, a lot of people have the idea that a witch is either a young, white, hippie-looking woman, or they are a haggard old crone. There are very rarely positive representations of witches outside of this category, and so a lot of people truly believe that men can't be witches, that non-binary people can't be witches, that you can't be a witch if you're a certain age or a certain skin tone, and I want to say right now that that is complete nonsense. Every single person can be a witch if they choose to study and practice witchcraft. I can almost guarantee you that you've probably walked past dozens of witches in your life and you wouldn't have even noticed. Because what does a witch look like? There is no definition for that, not within real witchcraft. It's really important to separate out fantasy and reality. Yes, in fantasy worlds, witches might be portrayed in a certain way, but would you trust a Disney movie with anything else? Would you trust a horror movie as being accurate to real life? No, because it's fiction, it's fantasy. So don't trust the representation of witchcraft in books, TV shows, and movies as being accurate to real life. Anyone and everyone could be a witch. Your vet, your doctor, your junior school teacher, your plumber, your bathroom fitter, your painter, all of them could be witches, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're non-binary or gender fluid, it doesn't matter. So please don't judge people based on the way they look. And that goes both ways. Don't say to someone that they can't be a witch because they look a certain way, just as you wouldn't call someone a witch just because they look kind of like your stereotype of being a witch. I think a lot of us, especially in online communities, get it. I certainly get it. I get told that I'm not a witch. I only want to be because my hair is this color, which always really confuses me because what does my hair have to do with my spiritual and magical practice? I'm not quite sure, but everyone can be a witch. So if someone has told you that you're not allowed to be because you're not a woman, or that you can't be because you don't fit one of the stereotypical characteristics of a witch, please don't listen to them. They are very uneducated on the subject, and please don't take it really harshly. These people usually just want to fit witches into this stereotypical box, and the fact is we don't fit into that stereotypical box. So the third is probably one of the most prevalent of all on this list, and that is the comment that you are going to go to hell. Repent for your sins. This actually gets so bad in online communities and in comment sections that I've actually had to block the words hell, sins, and repent from my comment section because I get this so often. It's really important to remember that just because you don't know what someone's religion is, that they are immediately going to go to hell. And I think it's really important to have religious tolerance to everyone. There are a lot of people that I know personally that are witches, and all of them that I know of respect everyone's beliefs, even if they aren't the same as their own. And it's really important to have the same respect for everyone around you. Now, when it comes to witchcraft, as I mentioned earlier, you can be a witch and be non-religious, but there are also a lot of Christian witches. There are a lot of people that work with Christian deities and archetypal figures within their religious practice, as well as their spiritual and magical practices. So it's really important to not judge a book by its cover. The person that you just told was going to go to hell for being a witch might be more of a devout religious person than you are. You can't judge it from the surface, and it's really important to have religious tolerance. Now, I have to say that of all the communities I've ever been a part of, the witchcraft community is actually one of the most accepting. Now, of course, there's going to be bad eggs, just as there are in every single community. But because witches have multiple different traditions across the world with different religions and different deities, different practices and different beliefs, we are very open to accepting people regardless of what their personal beliefs are. And I think it's really important to have the same religious understanding for everyone else that they treat you with. Because as far as I'm concerned, you can be whatever religion you like. You can have whatever beliefs that you like as long as you're not hurting anyone else. And if you do believe that witchcraft is harming other people, I would recommend researching material from the people that actually practice it. A lot of the material that is written from people opposed to witchcraft isn't factual information, and it never has been. You just have to look at the information from the witch trials. None of it was accurate. And the same applies today. If you want to learn more about witchcraft, go to the people that actually practice it. That's the best way to get information. Witches are generally very open-minded and accepting people. If you want to learn about witchcraft, even if you personally don't believe in it, a lot of people will be very willing to point you in the right direction to research materials. So before you post that you're going to go to hell on my comment section or say it to someone in person, please remember to give people the same respect that they give you. If they're accepting of your religious beliefs, please be the same to them. Because you never quite know what someone's religious beliefs are, and you never quite know what they're personally going through. So the next thing that you shouldn't say to a witch is, "Prove to me that you're a witch. Do a spell right now so that I can see it with my own eyes." I think we've all had this kind of person come up to us at some point or another, whether that's in person or online. The person that refuses to accept that such a thing as witchcraft might exist unless they have physical proof within 0.2 seconds. Now, this is probably the same kind of person that truly believes that witches can levitate and throw fireballs and all of these fantastical things that belong in TV shows and movies. This is something that I think a lot of people get fed up of seeing because it mainly comes out of misconception. That being that magic is somehow outside of nature, that we can do things that cannot otherwise be done, and that we can manifest things into thin air instantly with just our minds. Now, this isn't true. Let's face it, I think most of us know that this isn't true. Witchcraft still applies to natural laws. It's an assistant to life that can help improve our lives and the lives of the people around us. What it can't do is allow you to throw fireballs at your friend across the classroom or allow you to manifest a cake right before your very eyes. These kind of things just aren't real. So if you find out that one of your friends or family members is a practicing witch, please don't just demand that they prove it to you, because no one has to prove anything to you. The thing is that you aren't important to their magical practice. They don't have to earn your approval in order to be a practicing witch, and likely they probably don't want it. Their magical practice is theirs and theirs alone. They don't need you to approve it. They don't need you to agree with it. If you found out that this person is a witch or any other kind of magical practitioner, don't demand that they show you anything. Because yes, although you can sit in on spell work and rituals, you can see the ritual traditions of opening a circle, raising energy, casting a spell, charging items, cleansing items. You can see Sabbath celebrations, ritualistic chants. You can see trance work, but you can't see trance work because it's very, very different to movies and TV shows. You can see the physical process that we are doing actively in the physical world, but you can't see the person's trance work from the inside. You can't see their meditation. You can't see their divination with their deities. You can't see the magical outcome until it begins to manifest, and then you'll likely recognize it straight away. It's really important to note that magic isn't like you see in TV shows and movies, and you shouldn't hold your friends, family, or strangers accountable for your misunderstanding of magical practice. Because although you can see witchcraft being undertaken, you aren't going to see magic flying around. You're not going to see the sparks and the colourful lights. You're not going to see deities appear to your friend. You aren't going to see things magically materialise before your eyes. Because that isn't what it is. It's often a slow process. It takes time and energy and effort. It takes dedication and practice and learning. And those are things that you can't find and you can't see instantaneously. So maybe don't ask them to prove that they are a witch to you. But if you are interested and they are your friend or your family member, maybe ask if you can sit in on a ritual. Just watch. Pay attention to them, listen to them talk and explain it, learn from them a little bit, even if you don't choose to practice it for yourself. It can give you a much better insight on what witchcraft really is. And hopefully at the end of it, you will no longer need them to prove that they are a witch to you. So the next thing that you shouldn't say or you shouldn't ask a witch is, so can you do a reading for me? Or can you do a spell for me? For free. I'm your friend, right? You can do it for free. This is something that I think a lot of us have experienced, especially when friends, family members, or just basic acquaintances find out that we're magical practitioners. They often expect that we will be willing to do spell work and rituals for them at the drop of a hat, even if we don't have the energy, the time, or the items needed in order to do that working. It's really important to note that magical practitioners aren't a commodity. We are people. And yes, some of us may choose to do readings and spell work for the general public. But not all of us. A lot of us only do spell work and rituals for friends and family if they ask for it. And some people also only do spell work for themselves. It's really personal choice as to who, what, when, and why people might do spell work. And you can't just demand that someone does a reading for you right there and then, or that they do a spell for you. And even worse are the people that go up to strangers and say, "You're a witch, can you do a spell for me?" for free, because I really, really need it. The thing is that would you go up to a painter and decorator that you didn't know and tell them that you really, really need them to paint your entire house for free? Would they do it? Probably not. And witches are going to be the same. Yes, some people will offer free reading and free spell works, depending on how much they know you. If you're a friend or a family member, then maybe they will do spell work for free. But it is important to remember that this isn't fantasy TV show land. Items do cost money. Candles cost money. Herbs cost money. Incense costs money. Tarot cards cost money. But not only that, time and energy are really used up when doing spell work and when doing divination readings. For some people, it might not be much. For others, it might be truly exhausting. So don't expect that just because you found out that someone is a witch, they will then be at your beck and call every waking minute of the day to do every tarot card reading or every spell that you could possibly want. If that's the case, then you should probably learn to do those things yourself, because you can do it with time and effort. And if you don't want to put in the effort in order to do your own spell work or in order to do your own tarot readings, why would you expect someone else to use their time and their effort to do it for you for free? They probably won't. And that is the way it is. Unfortunately, you can't just go around demanding that people give you free things just because you really, really need it. This is a comment that I get a lot. Now, I don't offer divination and I don't offer spell work to the general public. If I did, I would probably be bombarded, and I simply can't do that. But I still get people asking on an almost daily basis if I can do it just for them because they desperately, desperately need it. And although I do feel very empathetic towards the people that are in really, really difficult situations, you really can't put that pressure on a magical practitioner that just doesn't want to do that working for you. You shouldn't blackmail people, you shouldn't threaten people, you shouldn't guilt trip people, especially friends and family members, into doing whatever spell and ritual you want just because you found out that they're a witch. It's really important to still acknowledge them as a person and not as a commodity. So the next thing that you should probably not say to a witch is that I've never met a Wiccan before. Now, this is a really, really common misconception, and usually it's never done maliciously. It's usually done just because they don't know any better, especially within modern media, but also within spell books and beginner witchcraft books. You'll often find the term witch and Wiccan used interchangeably. Now, it's important to note that the two are not the same thing. So although a lot of Wiccans will call themselves witches, it's important to remember that not all witches are Wiccan. So Wicca is one of the newest religions in the world. It was created in the late 1930s, released to the public in the early 1950s, and then massively exploded around the world. It's become one of the fastest growing religions around the entire globe. But witchcraft is very much older. It predates Wicca by a long, long way. And those that practice witchcraft don't have to follow the religion of Wicca. So not all witches are Wiccans. So it's always good to ask people rather than assuming. And I think they would really appreciate it as well. A lot of people, especially if they are younger or newer to the practice, they might feel really nervous and uncomfortable to let people know that they're a practicing witch. So to have you asking them, are you Wiccan or are you just a witch? I think a lot of people would really appreciate you just taking the time to ask them. That little moment, that singular question, could mean so much to someone who's really nervous about telling you that they're a magical practitioner, or that's terrified about you having found out. It's best not to assume anything when it comes to witchcraft, because every single practitioner is going to be slightly different. So don't assume that we're all devil worshippers, don't assume that we're Satanists, don't assume that we're Wiccan either. Although lots of magical practitioners do choose to follow one of the Wiccan traditions, not all of us do. And taking that just moment, that few seconds to ask, I think that could really mean a lot to someone. So the next is, you do know that Harry Potter, Charmed, and magic isn't real, right? This is something that's mainly sent online, usually by complete strangers. And it's largely based on the idea that witchcraft is something that's only seen in fantasy worlds. Things such as Harry Potter, Charmed, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. What these people fail to acknowledge is that creativity and imagination has to come from something. And even if it's very loosely based, a lot of these TV shows, movies, and books are based on actual magical practice. We see it in Charmed, where they refer to their book as a book of shadows. We see it in Harry Potter when they're talking about mandrake roots. We see it in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina with the little comments and the sabbats and celebrations. We see it in almost every form of fantasy media. It's based, even just loosely, on some form of real magical practice. So before you say this to someone, please remember that all of these fantasy things are based on something, and that something is a very, very old collection of traditions that actually has existed for as long as humans have documented their existence. For as long as we've had oral traditions and written traditions, there have been magical practices in every region around the world. This isn't something new. This isn't something that people with strong imaginations have created out of nowhere. This is something that has been practiced for thousands upon thousands of years. Long before Harry Potter ever popped into existence and long before Charmed was even considered as a show. These magical traditions are very old. These shows have just kind of taken bits of them and added them into the script and the information. Witches and other magical practitioners aren't stupid. Magical practice in itself takes a lot of study, a lot of education, and a lot of practice. It isn't something as easy as clicking your fingers or wishing really, really hard. It is a craft. It is a work. It's spell work for a reason. It takes a lot of effort. We aren't daft. We aren't delusional. We aren't stuck in fairy tale worlds. If anything, the fairy tale worlds are stuck in witchcraft and not the other way around. So it's really important to not look down on or judge anyone poorly because they choose to research and study something that you personally haven't. And it's likely that if you did do some research on these fantasy TV shows or fantasy movies or even books, you would likely realize quite quickly that a lot of the basis of these shows is set in actual magical traditions. Another thing that you probably shouldn't ask a magical practitioner or a witch is, have you ever cast black magic on me? This is something that people largely get, especially if they are very fearful of witchcraft. So if they are part of a religion that is very fearful or a community that has a lot of fear surrounding the traditions of witchcraft or magical practice in general, you'll often find that when a friend finds out that you practice witchcraft, they will immediately ask if you've done anything negative on them, because to them, they probably can't imagine witchcraft being anything other than negative. This is largely based on fear-mongering and stigmatized ideas of what witchcraft actually is, rather than what witchcraft actually is. So one of the things that I find really, really comical with this particular question is that if someone was going to do negative magic towards you, they probably aren't still going to be your friend. So you wouldn't have the chance to ask them this question because they probably won't be around you anymore. Now, a lot of magical practitioners will choose to not cast spells on people unless they absolutely have to. They'll go through all of the mundane options first, and then they'll turn to witchcraft when they need to. So if someone didn't like you or wanted to do a negative spell on you, they would probably first do the mundane option, and that would be to just, not be friends with you anymore. Then they'd go through blocking you, removing you from social media sites, and then maybe if you still haven't gone away, they're going to do some negative working on you. But guarantee at that point, you'd probably know that they didn't really want to be around you. So I do find that comment quite comical. But the idea of spells being cast on people, I think it's really important to note that not everyone is even willing to cast spells on other people, even if it's for good. A lot of people refuse to interfere with everyone else's lives. Some people will flat out not do any workings for anyone other than themselves and their close family. Some people will ask your permission first. Some people will want you to be in the ritual or in the spell work with them. Some people, of course, will do magic on you regardless of whether or not you've given your consent. However, when it comes to the grand scheme of things, a lot of people actually don't want to have to do workings on other people. They'd much rather influence aspects of life rather than people, because a lot of the time that gets the better result. So rather than trying to convince you to get a job with spell work, what they would probably do is try to get a good job to come to you. That way it's your choice whether or not you go and get that job or not. It could be your dream job being waved right in front of your face, and then you're probably going to take it. A lot of people will choose to interact with the environment around you rather than directly interfering with you, as it often gives some of the best results. So it's really important, if you're going to go accusing a friend or a family member of doing witchcraft on you, that you really take into consideration how much effort, time, and energy would go into that working, and also, did you feel anything? Did anything manifest? Are they still friends with you? If they are, they likely didn't do anything negative towards you. And if anything, they probably didn't do anything towards you at all. It takes a whole lot of energy. It's a lot harder to maintain. And often, it just isn't worth it. There's lots of other ways that we can influence the world around us and the world around you besides casting a spell directly on you. So the next one is probably the worst of them all, and that is saying something, because some of these have been doozies, but this one is probably the worst, mainly because of just how wrong it is. Now, I don't know if it's just women that get this, I'm sure it's not, but of the people that I've spoken to before creating this video, it was only women that mentioned having this happen to them, but I would love to know if anyone else has experienced this as well. But it is the remark, "Well, then let me search for a witch's mark to prove it." Yes, you heard that correctly. For some people that maybe don't know about the witch trials, that might not mean anything, but it is a large misconception that came out during the witch trials that to prove that someone was a witch, you would search for a mark, a blemish, a birthmark, a mole, some kind of wound or injury. That was where an imp fed on the witch, and it was used as evidence in the witch trials to prove that someone was a magical practitioner. Now, this often involved forcing the person being accused of witchcraft to strip down, while collections of people would search their naked body to find a mark. And regardless of what that mark was, if they found a mark on you, you could well have been tried and proven guilty for witchcraft. Now, often these marks would appear in discrete areas like the inner thighs, the chest. And so to have someone say, "Well, then let me search for a witch's mark so we can prove that you're a witch," is honestly probably one of the most disgusting things that anyone could say to someone. If this is the first thing that comes out of your mouth when someone tells you that they're a witch, or if this is the first thing that comes out of your mouth when you find out that a stranger is a witch, please just back away, keep going. keep going. Bit further. If I can still see you, it's not far enough. Because I've had this comment on multiple occasions by both random strangers and people that I actually knew. And I am so shocked by just how prevalent this is. It goes back to the comment about, well, if you're a witch, then prove it. No one has to prove anything to anyone. If you find out that your friend, family member, or random stranger that you meet is a witch, just accept that they're a witch. And also, don't then sexualize it and say something like this. Like, I was blown away. At first, I thought when I got this message the first time, oh, maybe it's just some really weird person. Block. But then when I realized that other people had had similar comments, I was completely shocked and actually really appalled. The witch trials was a period of horrific brutality. The majority of the people that were tried for witchcraft actually had nothing to do with witchcraft. Most of the things that were used to prove that someone was a witch actually have nothing to do with witchcraft and never have had anything to do with witchcraft. So not just applying to this one, but if your first comment when you find out that someone is a witch is to sexualize it, please just don't talk to me. And it made me realize just how over-sexualized witches are in some people's minds. So please don't say this to people within the magical community, because there are a lot of people, most people, that don't want to receive these messages. There are lots of minors within the magical community. There are lots of people with trauma in the magical community. There are just lots of people in the magical community that don't want to deal with this. Whatever this is classified as, I don't want it. And most people, 99.9% of people, do not want someone walking up to them and saying that to them. So just common decency, right? Just don't. So the last thing on this list comes from a slightly different perspective. This is generally from the person that's really, really interested in what you do. They're fascinated by witchcraft. And now that they realize that you know what you're talking about, they want you to teach them everything. Usually you get the comment of, teach me everything that you know. Or can you tell me what this does? Or this, or this, or this, or this, or this. And they usually list off like 100 very, very simplistic questions, and they want you to, at a drop of a hat, just answer everything for them. Now with this, it's never typically done in a malicious fashion. Usually they are beginners, they're very excitable, they want to know as much as they can really, really quickly. But it's important to note that if you don't know the person that you're talking to, they're probably not going to be willing to teach you everything and just give you everything on a silver platter. Because they have their own lives, they have their own things that they have to do, things that they want to do, and taking on an apprentice probably isn't what they're after. Now, it is slightly different if you do know the person. If they're a family member or a personal friend, they might be more willing to assist you, to guide you to the things that will give you more information, to teach you some of the basic principles and to let you sit in on rituals and spell work so you can kind of get an idea of what you're doing without necessarily having to jump headfirst in yourself. You can kind of get a passenger side seat on what witchcraft is if they are a personal friend or family member. But if they're a stranger online, please don't ask for them to tutor you. Please don't ask them to tell you everything that they know. And also, please don't bombard them with a bunch of very, very simplistic questions. We've all been there. It can be very, very difficult at the start to know where to find information, to know what to look for. Where do you go? Is the internet reliable? What book should I get? It's very, very all over the place. But especially now, in the 21st century, there are so many reading options. There are so many resources that we can use. Everything from social media to books, to YouTube channels, to blog posts. There's now places and libraries that have occult books in libraries that you can go to and you can get out for free. There are so many podcasts, YouTube channels, documentaries. There's so much on witchcraft that you can learn from. So please don't demand that a stranger teach you everything or answer your 150 exceptionally simplistic questions, because guarantee They get that question every single day by tens, if not hundreds of people, and it's exhausting. Now, of course, a lot of practitioners are willing to guide you. That's a completely different thing. You'll often find that people will be willing to assist you. So if you find out that someone is a witch, maybe ask them to guide you to a reliable source of information or a YouTube channel that might be really useful. They will often be very, very willing to give you links to resources that could really, really help you. But don't expect a random stranger is going to be willing to teach you everything. And also don't expect them to answer very, very simplistic questions. If you can answer it with a Google search and it comes up as the first search, then you can do that yourself. The general rule of thumb for a lot of people within the community is that if a question can be answered with a singular Google search or by reading one very generic witchcraft book, then they probably aren't going to answer it for you. It's called spell work for a reason. It is witchcraft. It's something you have to learn and grow as. And of course, getting started can be kind of intimidating, but please don't bombard people that you meet online or even friends and family with your 1001 different very, very simplistic questions. If your question is, what is clear quartz for? You can do that with a very, very simplistic Google search. And if in doubt, check multiple different links. Don't just trust the first webpage that you find. Instead, go through many. See what they say that's different, see what they say that's the same, and really try to formulate a picture that way. We all have to start somewhere, and I know that it can be really, really intimidating, but best to not bombard people with thousands of messages that you really could get just by doing a really simple search or by reading just one, even if it's a bad book. Often these questions are answered. So those are just a few of the things that you probably shouldn't say or ask witches. But what kind of things can you say? Now, of course, if it's a friend or a family member, then treat them like you would normally treat them. They are a person first and a magical practitioner second. They aren't a commodity that you can just keep asking questions and getting things out of. They're a person, they're your friend, they're your cousin or your sibling or your aunt or your uncle. They're someone that's close to you that you can very easily have a conversation with. So talk to them about it, ask them questions, just interact with them. I'm sure that a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable when the people around them are asking very genuine questions. They aren't making assumptions, they aren't jumping to conclusions, they're just asking. What is involved in it? I'd love to know more. Is it a religion? Is it a magical practice? What is it? What kind of things do you do? What kind of spell work do you do? Do you read any tarot cards or do you do any divination? I'd love to know more. Ask them just very genuine, open questions that they can give a real insightful answer to, and that's probably the best way to go about it. So I think back to when my family found out that I was a practicing witch. It was actually when they found out about my YouTube channel. Yeah, sorry guys, I kind of told the world first before I told you guys. I apologize. But my family were really, really supportive about it. I remember when I saw them at Christmas after they found out about my YouTube channel, my cousin was just asking me a bunch of just really genuine questions. Like, what kind of things do you do? Is it a religion? How do you practice it? What kind of things go into it? What do you believe in? And they were just asking me a lot of very open questions that I could give a genuine answer to. Don't box them in of, well, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Because it doesn't really work like that. Use a lot of open questions, really try to get answers from them the way they want to share them, not the way you might want to hear them. If it's a person on the internet, don't immediately start asking them questions like they're a search engine. We are not here to answer every single question that you could possibly have. That applies to content creators like me, but it also applies to just people. There are lots of people on social media platforms that might describe themselves as being a witch. That doesn't then give you the right to just use them as a search engine to ask anything that you want or demand that they give you free readings because you really, really need it. Instead, it's best to actually talk to them like they're a person. Introduce yourself, tell them that you're interested in learning a little bit more and could you point them in the right direction. If someone can answer your question by doing a singular Google search, then it's probably something that you should be answering for yourself. However, a lot of us are very willing to help with topics that are a little bit more tricky, things that aren't so mainstream, things that aren't spoken about quite so much. Treat practitioners as though they're people. Don't treat witches as though they are a means to an end or an entertainment point. We don't exist to be entertaining to you. We don't exist to give you information. We exist in our own rights. And a lot of us are willing to help, and a lot of us are willing to do research and talk to you. But please treat us with respect. Don't tell us that we're going to go to hell even if you don't know anything about us. Don't tell us that we are stupid because we believe in witchcraft, but you don't understand it. And don't treat us like overly sexualized objects and search engines. It's just not something that should be done. Treat the witches around you with kindness, and we will do the same back again. So I know that this was a very, very long video, but this is something that I have been toying with for a while because a lot of us have to deal with this every single day. And for some people, they might feel very isolated and alone. So this is to let you guys know that if you've experienced any of this, you aren't alone. A lot of us have to deal with it. It's something that comes with the territory, and I really wish that it didn't. But until we can dispel as many misconceptions within people as possible, this is probably still going to be an issue. So if you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a like. It really, really means so much to me. Let me know what thing someone shouldn't have said to you. I would absolutely love to know what other people's experiences have been. Of course, this is only just a few of some of the many, many things that probably shouldn't be said to witches, but I'd love to know the one thing that you really, really hate being told or asked as a magical practitioner. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, feel free to let me know down in the comment section. If you do want to chat with other like-minded people, we do have a Discord server that's linked down in the description box. And if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I do try my best to post magical content every single week. So I hope you guys are all staying safe. I hope you're having a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! What was that? That wasn't even a sneeze. Seriously, you guys, look at my hands. I have been sitting on them to try to stop me from using them in the video so much because I talk a lot with my hands, and they've gone bright red to the point where they could genuinely be someone else's hands. There could be someone just moving their hands that's not me, and you wouldn't know because these don't look like my hands anymore. Jazz hands mean a lot to them. A lot of people... Is that a slug? I think that's a slug. It's a woodlouse. Sorry, I forgot it was rolling for a minute. That is a giant ass woodlouse. The downside of living in an old property.